Am I the idiot? My 27-year-old female boyfriend, 29-year-old male, recently found out he is at a high risk for diabetes and he is overweight on the BMI scale. His doctor told him he needs to start making changes to his diet. My boyfriend has always been a naturally bigger guy, but recently he's been eating more unhealthy, thus has gained 15 more pounds since the beginning of this year. Since his doctor's appointment, he's been trying to make healthier meals at home instead of eating out, and he's going to the gym more often. I have been trying to be as supportive as I can for him, and if I'm not able to go to the gym with him, I'll ask if he wants to go jogging together or ride bikes. Now, I am the opposite of my boyfriend. I have always been very slim and have trouble gaining weight. I've just always had a really fast metabolism. My diet isn't great, but I do eat at home, especially more now since he's been cooking, and I eat his meals with him, or I make us both meals. But the problem is, I snack a lot. I might have some ice cream at night after dinner, or a cookie or two. My boyfriend has been making comments to me, saying I need to stop snacking in front of him because it's not helping his diet. He becomes tempted when he sees me eating junk food and wants to join in. For example, a few nights ago, after I got done with work, I decided to stop at Dairy Queen and I got a small sundae. My boyfriend ended up getting home earlier than expected, so I walked into the house holding my sundae and he got upset. He said, "Oh my God, did you really need to get that? You don't need to have a treat every night. You can go one day without it. This is just ridiculous." Also, I bought some Hershey chocolates at the store the other day and put them in the pantry. When he was in the pantry getting stuff to make dinner with, he saw the chocolates and got mad. He told me I shouldn't be buying this stuff and starts lecturing me on how bad it is. Every time he sees me with junk food, he makes several comments about how I need to be healthier, how I don't need to eat every time I feel hungry. One day this will all catch up to me, and then I'll regret eating this stuff. He also says I'm inconsiderate for eating it in front of him when he's clearly trying to be healthier. I do want to support him, and I feel like I have been, but I told him I don't think it's fair he controls what I should and shouldn't eat. IDK, I do feel bad, but at the same time I'm getting annoyed when he makes comments to me every time I want to enjoy something. Am I the idiot for this? What can I do to be more supportive? Edit. Wow, I didn't know this would get so many comments, but I appreciate everyone for responding, whether positive or negative. I would like to clarify a few things though. First, maybe I made it seem like I'm constantly snacking, but I'm not. Just after dinner, sometimes I like to have a cookie or two, or maybe a small bowl of ice cream just to have something sweet. But from some of these comments, it sounds like people think I sit on the couch and just gouge my face in sweets. Also, I don't deliberately try to eat in front of him. As I mentioned above, since he's been on this new diet plan, I have tried to avoid eating sweets when he's at home. Thus, I didn't know he would be home when I brought that sundae in. Yes, I did put the chocolates in the pantry, and after reading some of these comments, I will have to change my storage location for them. Our pantry is really big. It's like a walk-in one. I didn't realize he would see them that easily. I had them up on a higher shelf, but I guess he needed an ingredient that was also up there and saw them. And also it hurts when people are saying, "You clearly don't care about your boyfriend," because that's so far from being true. I want him to succeed with his new lifestyle change, and I feel like I have been supporting him really well because I've made a lot of changes since he had that doctor's visit. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Very soft, you're the idiot solution. Go buy your sundae but eat it there. Don't bring it home. Buy your chocolates but keep them in your desk at work, or someplace more discreet than in the kitchen cupboard. If you want fast food, eat it either when he is not home or at the restaurant. Even though it's not nice of him to berate you, do try to be a bit more sensitive when you feel like eating something you know he is trying to avoid. If he is with you, can see you. Once he has started to lose weight, he will be less irritable and will be proud of his weight loss. So it'll be easier for him to see/know you eat things he has had to give up. Comment 2. Not the idiot, honestly, he's being a hangry bully. He's upset he can't eat and projecting it onto you. You're both adults, and unless he's having a true addiction problem, you don't need to police yourself for him. Sure, make accommodations if it helps, like keeping snacks in only one place that he knows not to look for meal supplies, or eat your desserts separately after you're done your meal together. But he can't expect you to live your life in secret, tiptoeing around pretending to be living in famine. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a hectic 2 weeks since I last posted about my boyfriend's health journey and my snacking habits. Things took a turn when my boyfriend found my secret stash of candy bars hidden in my nightstand drawer. He was furious, accusing me of sabotaging his efforts. I tried to explain that I wasn't deliberately trying to tempt him, but he wouldn't listen. The argument escalated until he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I felt awful. I knew I needed to make some changes if I truly wanted to support him. So the next day I gathered up all my junk food and donated it to the local food bank. It was hard parting with my favorite treats, but I knew it was for the best. When my boyfriend came home that evening, I had a heart-to-heart with him. I apologized for not being more considerate and promised to do better. He appreciated my efforts and admitted that he may have overreacted a bit. We agreed to work together to create a healthier household. Over the next few days, we cleaned out our pantry and fridge, replacing processed snacks with fresh fruits and veggies. We started meal prepping together on Sundays, experimenting with new recipes we found online. It was actually a lot of fun bonding over our shared goal. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. My boyfriend's cravings were still intense, and there were moments when he nearly gave in to temptation, like when we went to the movies and he longingly eyed the concession stand. I gently reminded him of how far he'd come and suggested we share a small popcorn instead of getting individual snacks. It was a compromise that worked for both of us. As the days went on, I started noticing some positive changes in myself too. Without all the junk food weighing me down, I had more energy and even started enjoying our gym sessions together. It felt good to be taking care of my body alongside my boyfriend. But the real test came when we attended a family barbecue at his parents' house. The table was loaded with all sorts of delicious but unhealthy dishes. I could see the conflict in my boyfriend's eyes as he stared at his mom's famous potato salad. I knew I had to do something. So I pulled his mom aside and explained the situation. To my surprise, she was incredibly understanding. She even dug out some old family recipes for healthier versions of classic BBQ sides. Together, we whipped up a few dishes that fit into my boyfriend's new diet plan. When we sat down to eat, my boyfriend was touched by his mom's efforts. He realized that he had a whole support system behind him, not just me. It was a turning point for him, knowing that he didn't have to face this journey alone. As we drove home that night, my boyfriend reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you," he said softly, "for everything." I smiled, feeling a sense of pride and love wash over me. Looking back on these past 2 weeks, I realized that supporting my boyfriend's health journey isn't about perfection. It's about being there for each other, even when it's tough. It's about making small, sustainable changes that add up over time. And most importantly, it's about doing it together as a team. We still have a long way to go, but I'm excited to see where this path takes us. Who knows? Maybe next year we'll be running a 5K together or something. The possibilities are endless when you have someone by your side, cheering you on every step of the way. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks again for reading and for all your advice and support. It truly means the world to us. Until next time. Am I the idiot for tearing down a fence? My neighbor built on my property without asking? I have lived at my house for 5 years with no problems with my next-door neighbor until now. He put in a fence along our side yards this winter without a survey, and since there was snow on the ground, you could not see the sprinkler heads. A few weeks ago, I went to turn on my sprinklers, and it turns out the new fence is on my property, as my sprinklers heads are on the other side of the fence now. I normally wouldn't care about this part of my yard, but I plan on selling my house this year, and in order to sell, things have to be up to code. I asked my neighbor if he could move the fence over. It's a chain link, which makes it easy to move, and I told him that I planned to sell. He stated it was all good because he already hired someone to come and move my sprinkler heads over, so then it wouldn't matter. I told him no to moving the sprinkler heads, as when a survey is done for the sale of the house, the fence is still on my property and will need to be moved, and then the sprinkler heads won't be in the right spot and will need to be moved back. He refused to cancel who he hired, so I was able to reach the guy and cancel myself. So I asked my neighbor again to move the fence, to which he offered to buy my house for cash for what I owe on my mortgage, not for what the house is worth, which I would lose a ton of money on the deal. So I told him no, and he would still need to move the fence for the sale of the house anyway. So he said in that case he would pay to have a new survey done and buy the property off me that his fence sits on. He also tried twice again to send the guy back to move my sprinkler heads, but I stopped it again both times. Yesterday, the survey was done, and it was determined that the fence is 40 inches on my property. The fence is touching the back of my shed. My neighbor again asked to buy my property and make the fence the new property line, to which I again said no because the city zoning laws state my shed has to be at least 36 inches from the property line. So my shed is compliant with the current property line, but would need to be moved if the fence became the new property line. It also turns out his shed is on my property too. His response was that he would pay to have my shed torn down and rebuilt with a smaller shed, as mine is too big anyway. I again said no, as my shed not only needs to be that size to store my tractor in the winter, but it also houses my pool pump filter, so moving the location of the shed would require redoing all the piping and electrical. This would cost thousands of dollars and it would be very complicated. I again told my neighbor he just needs to move his fence, as this is the simplest and cheapest option. He is willing to spend thousands of dollars on these other options instead, which makes no sense. His latest response is now that he has gifted me the fence, and if I want to move it, I can. He is refusing to do anything else now, and that I am being unreasonable. Am I the idiot if I just tear it down this weekend? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. I would have your lawyer write him a letter giving him X days to move the fence. After X days, the fence will be removed, and the fence scraps will be dumped on his property for his disposal. In the letter, I would include that this is not a negotiation, but simply a notice. You are also not interested in selling any portion of your land to keep the fencing in place, nor are you interested in selling your home to him for below market value. Comment 2, not the idiot, but do not touch that fence without getting it in writing that he gave that section to you. Get legal support, call the local police to report the issue, and that he keeps hiring someone to do work on your property, which will cause damages. Document, document, document. Take pictures, write down every conversation if you cannot record them. This is a CYOA situation, even though you are in the right. These situations can go bad fast. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a month since I last posted about my neighbor's fence issue, and boy, have things taken a turn for the worse. After my neighbor refused to move the fence and claimed he had gifted it to me, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I thought I could just tear down the fence myself and be done with it. I mean, it was on my property, right? Well, that's where I made a huge mistake. I woke up early on a Saturday morning, grabbed my tools, and started dismantling the fence. I was about halfway through when my neighbor came out, screaming at me to stop. He called the police, claiming I was destroying his property. When the officers arrived, they asked for proof that the fence was on my land. I showed them the survey, but my neighbor had a trick up his sleeve. Turns out, he had secretly filed a claim with the city stating that the fence had been in place for years and that he had adverse possession of the land. He even had a fake survey showing the fence as the property line. The officers told me I couldn't remove the fence without a court order, and I was left standing there looking like a fool. But that's not the worst part. Remember how I mentioned I was planning to sell my house? Well, word got around about the property dispute, and potential buyers started backing out. They didn't want to deal with the hassle of a legal battle over the property line. My real estate agent told me I'd have to lower the asking price significantly if I wanted to attract any buyers. I was devastated. I had been counting on the sale of the house to help me move closer to my aging parents. Now I was stuck in a legal mess with my neighbor, and my plans were falling apart. As I dug deeper into the situation, I discovered that my neighbor had a history of boundary disputes with previous homeowners. Apparently, he had pulled similar stunts in the past, claiming land that wasn't his and refusing to back down. I couldn't believe I hadn't looked into this before buying the house. To make matters worse, my neighbor started harassing me daily. He'd stand at the fence taunting me and making snide comments about how I was stuck with him forever. He even went as far as to damage my shed, claiming it was on his property and he had the right to do whatever he wanted with it. I was at my wit's end. I had to hire a lawyer to fight the adverse possession claim, and the legal fees were eating into my savings. The stress was taking a toll on my health, and I found myself snapping at my family and friends. In the end, the court ruled in my neighbor's favor. The fake survey and his claim of adverse possession held up, and I lost a significant portion of my yard. I had to pay to have my shed torn down and rebuilt, and the value of my house plummeted. I felt like I had lost everything. My dream of moving closer to my parents was shattered, and I was stuck living next to a nightmare neighbor who had made my life a living hell. Looking back, I realized I should have handled things differently. I should have done my research before buying the house, and I should have tried to find a legal solution instead of taking matters into my own hands. But hindsight is 20/20, and all I can do now is try to pick up the pieces and move on. Thanks for listening to my update, everyone. I appreciate your support during this difficult time. Am I the idiot for supporting my fiance's decision to cut ties with her toxic mom who tried to control our wedding with her money? I, 25-year-old male, am going to be marrying my lovely fiance, 27-year-old female, in 6 months. Let's call her Gabrielle G. She's fantastic, I love her to bits, and I am excited as hell for the wedding. Her mother, however, is an aggressor, and this is mutually agreed upon by us. For as long as I've known G, every couple of months, they will get into a fight fabricated by her mother, culminating in her mother sending vile things to G. I encourage G to stand up for herself. However, she hand-waves this abuse, after being incredibly upset for a time, of course, since her mother is the only parent she has. Throughout wedding planning, her mother has flipped between being helpful and toxic. For brevity, I'll avoid examples, but this has often surrounded money and how her mother has put so much towards the wedding. However, this has almost always been contingent on doing what her mother wants with the money, often outside our budget and what we want for the wedding. In most cases, though, we just give in. Then it gets lorded over us how much her mother is contributing. Any pushback over ideas that her mother has is immediately responded to with a tirade on disrespect and how much she has contributed, how we should be grateful, etc. This has mutually annoyed G and me to no end. It came to a head today. Her mother wanted to pay for something she really wanted, but then explicitly said that she wouldn't pay for something else that she wanted, and we didn't. G, with my support, presented some pushback, which went down the familiar path of disrespect. However, this time it got vile, personal, and about as hurtful as you can get in text format. It was shared with me by G and was one of the most disgusting passages of text I've ever read. Her mother said she wasn't going to come to the wedding and demanded we give back the money she already provided. My immediate response to G was that I don't want to negotiate with someone playing the emotional blackmail card. She could have the money back, and that's that. G tended to agree, saying that if that's what her mother really wanted, she couldn't stop her. However, her mother tried to wheel everything back a few hours later, pretending the abuse didn't happen. However, I was done with it at this point. We're this far out from the wedding, and her behavior was spiraling. I have a personal gripe with bullies and abusers, so I was furious. Previously, I was only hanging on for G's sake. With this, I told G that I wouldn't accept this backtracking from her mother, and she wasn't to come. She can have her money back, that's that. G understands where I'm coming from and accepts this. However, of course, she is still somewhat upset that it has come to this, and that her mother, who, as I said, is her only parent, cannot come to the wedding. I refuse, however, to share a wedding with an outright aggressor who has for years terrorized G endlessly and brought no end of strife to the wedding planning process with her consistent emotional abuse of both of us. So, am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You have bigger problems. Your fiancé is the one who needs to make the decision to cut off her mother. It cannot be you. You also need to decide on how disagreements will be handled. Will her mom always be in your life? I don't want to call you an because she sounds horrible, but you also cannot force the issue. Your fiancé needs support in therapy. You also need to decide if you can handle your mother-in-law in your life to any capacity, because it sounds like your partner isn't ready to cut ties. No idiots here. Comment 2. Not the idiot. It's going to be upsetting for G, but at some point she needs to rip off the Band-Aid or forever suffer, slowly pulling it off only for it to glue itself back to her skin again. It's a moment of pain to save her from a lifetime of suffering. P.S. Of course, as a stranger on the internet, it's easier for me to say than it is for her to do it, so she will need a lot of support from you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a week since I made the decision to uninvite G's mother from our wedding, and a lot has happened since then. After we told her mother that she wasn't welcome at the wedding and that we would return the money she had contributed, things took a turn for the worse. G's mother went on a rampage, sending her a barrage of hurtful texts and voicemails. She accused G of being an ungrateful daughter and claimed that she had always been a burden. It was heartbreaking to see G so upset, but I did my best to support her and remind her that none of this was her fault. A few days later, we received a letter from G's mother. I was hesitant to open it, but G insisted. Inside, we found a lengthy letter filled with more abuse and manipulation. Her mother claimed that she had never wanted to come to the wedding in the first place, and that she was glad to be rid of us. She also made some disturbing accusations about G's father, who had passed away when G was young. According to her mother, G's father had been hurtful toward her and had even threatened to unalive her on several occasions. G was shocked and confused by these revelations, as she had always believed that her parents had a loving relationship. I tried to comfort G as best I could, but I could tell that this new information was eating away at her. She started to question everything she had ever known about her family and her childhood. I suggested that we take a break from wedding planning and focus on her mental health, but G insisted that she wanted to keep moving forward. As we continued with the preparations, I started to notice some changes in G's behavior. She became more withdrawn and distant, and she started to snap at me over little things. I tried to be patient and understanding, but it was clear that the stress of the situation was taking a toll on our relationship. One day, while I was going through some old boxes in our apartment, I stumbled upon a photo album that I had never seen before. Inside, I found pictures of G and her family from when she was a child. As I flipped through the pages, I noticed something strange. In almost every photo, G's mother was standing off to the side, looking angry and resentful. And in one particularly disturbing photo, I saw what appeared to be bruises on G's father's face. I knew I had to show G the album, but I was worried about how she would react. When I finally worked up the courage to show her, she broke down in tears. She said that she had always suspected that something was off about her family, but she had never had any proof until now. We spent the next few hours talking through everything, and I could see the weight lifting off G's shoulders. She said that she felt like she finally had some closure and that she was ready to move on with her life. As we continued with the wedding planning, I started to notice a change in G's attitude. She seemed more confident and self-assured, and she was no longer letting her mother's abuse control her life. We even managed to find a way to incorporate a tribute to her father into the ceremony, which meant a lot to G. In the end, our wedding day was perfect. We were surrounded by our friends and family, and G looked absolutely stunning in her dress. As we exchanged our vows, I couldn't help but feel grateful for everything we had been through together. It hadn't been easy, but we had come out stronger on the other side. Looking back, I realized that I made a mistake in not showing G the photo album sooner. If I had, maybe we could have avoided some of the pain and confusion that followed. But I also know that everything happens for a reason, and that our experiences have only made us stronger as a couple. Thanks for reading, everyone. I appreciate all the support and advice you've given us throughout this journey. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.